Okay, so we are at the end of Shemot. Yay! Chazak! Woohoo! So, Pekudei. So, what does Pekudei discuss?
The big day kahuna, but the second day.
What?
Second time.
The second. Right, I mean, the second. Yeah, I think it's the second half of the second time that we're discussing the Mishkan. Right? There's the final counting. There's the final accounting of how much money came in for the Mishkan. And then yes, we get the recap of the big day kahuna, and that basically takes us to the end of the last few psukim, when that's when the Anan actually comes down on the Mishkan. Okay, so just to make a quick point, what is the phrase that comes up most often in Pekudei? What?
Tommy.
Phrase. I mentioned it last week, but it doesn't come up in Vayakel, but really in Pekudei it comes up many, many, many times.
Tell him again. Oh, you mentioned that last week, huh?
Oh, God. If you look through the Chumash, you'd see it. It comes up at the end of almost... it comes up, I don't know how many times.
Say less, come on.
Kol asher tzivah Hashem et Moshe. Or kasher tzivah Hashem et Moshe. Right? That over and over and over you get the notion in the Mishkan that it was built in the exact way, with the exact instructions that God commanded. This what? Yeah, it's a good thing. Look, this is one of the classic vorts on Pekudei, but I also think it's true, right? Sometimes classic vorts are just vorts. I think here it's particularly true. Why is that important, right? I mean, everything in life, great, should be kasher tzivah Hashem et Moshe. That's a good way to live your life, right? If at the end of your life you can say, I lived my life kasher tzivah Hashem et Moshe, sounds good. But why do you think by the Mishkan that's particularly important?
Because the whole point is that we're doing a voda, like Hashem tells us. It's like,
especially according to Rashi, that the Mishkan was like a compromise for the Egel. If we did it in our own way, it became a bad thing.
Well, so according to Rashi, I think that's probably right. Right? I mean, according to Rashi, I think that is probably part of it, right? Is that Rashi thinks that the Mishkan is a kapara for the Egel, and the whole notion of the Egel, whether you think it was actually Avodah Zarah, or it was the way Rabbi Yehuda Halevi says in the Kuzari, that it wasn't Avodah Zarah, it was that the Jews were using an intermediary in a way which was forbidden. The whole point of the Mishkan is that you
do it God's way.
Right, you do it God's ways, and therefore it's a kapara. But even if you don't accept the Rashi's read, you take it like the Ramban, this was part of the plan, I think the pshat is pretty simple. Yeah, I mean, I think this is really part of the greater vision of the Mishkan in general. Ariel's right, Nadav and Avihu are a good example of this as well, is that the Mishkan in particular, which is a place where multiple things, right? God, so to speak, makes his presence imminent in this world. And we deal with a lot of dangerous things. I mean that at many levels. Like, what dangerous things we deal with in the Mishkan? What do I mean dangerous? We deal with theologically dangerous things, like the Kruvim. Right? Like things that, were it not for the command, would be Avodah Zarah. Right? We're making a home for God in this world, which is, to begin with, anthropomorphizing, right? Meaning, the Mishkan, more than anything else, is very, very, very dangerous, because theologically we are creating physical objects that are supposed to represent and in some way encapsulate God, right? Which is impossible, right? That was what Shlomo HaMelech said, right? The line that basically summarizes the contradiction inherent in the Mishkan or Mikdash is what Shlomo HaMelech says in his Tefillah when he builds the Mikdash. What does he say? Yes, right. Shemaim v'shmei Shemaim lo yichal kalucha v'gam abayit asher baniti l'shimcha or something. Right, the heaven and the heavens of the heavens can't contain you, and yet somehow my house is going to. Right, meaning it's a theological contradiction. Right, but whatever it means, in some way or another, God decides to be immanent in it. The point is, when you're dealing with something like that, more than anything else, the only thing that justifies that physical representation of God's home is kasher tzivah Hashem at Moshe. I think we talked about this Parshas Yisro, right, in Rashi's comment, that Right? Lo tasun iti Elohei chesed Elohei zahav. What does Rashi say? I quoted this from I heard from Rabbi Friedman when I was back in Rambam. Right? Rashi says, don't make the kruvim, which are meant to be of gold, out of silver. And that would be lo tasun iti Elohei chesed. That would be avodah zarah. Why? Because they're basically statues to begin with. They are, right? They are idols that God has told you to put in the Mishkan. If you change it even in a slight detail,
then they become actual idols.
Then become actual idols. Because the only thing that justifies them is Kasher Tziva Hashem et Moshe. And I think Ariel is correct that the place where you really see this, and I think, this is like the classic vort in Pekudei and the classic vort on Shmini, right? Is that Nadav and Avihu decide to bring
their alien fire.
Yes, but what is it? Right? What's the way the Torah describes it? Right? It was an alien fire, meaning which was not commanded. Right? It was not commanded, and that was enough for them to be killed. And again, I don't think this is like a very, very complicated point, but I do think that one of the themes that runs through the Mishkan in general, and I think, by the way, I think this explains why, because otherwise it's a little bit bizarre. Like, why is it that the Mishkan is so dangerous? I mean, what do we say over and over in the context of the Mishkan when we warn people to protect the Mishkan?
Yes.
So that people won't die, right? We constantly talk about the fact that if you mess up in the Mikdash, that God will kill you, right? The Kohanim have to make sure that the wrong person doesn't go in, because then they'll die, right? Which story manifests this most clearly, most terrifyingly?
When they brought the Aron back in David's time.
Yeah, exactly. When the Aron was brought in David's time, and someone... Wait, the poor guy tried to stop the Aron from falling, tried to catch the Aron before it fell on the floor. He touched it and he died. Right? Meaning this notion that, that you have to understand the Mikdash and the Mishkan and the Aron in the proper perspective and really, really understand that it's unique. And the whole notion that we can even talk about a physical instantiation of God, even metaphorically, is mechudash and needs to be justified. Again, the only thing that justifies it is Kasher Tziva Hashem et Moshe. And that's why I think, I didn't come up with this. I've heard this so many times over the years, I don't know who I heard it from first anymore. I probably heard it in elementary school first. But I still think it's true, right? Is that is why that becomes sort of the guiding phrase throughout the actual building of the Mishkan. What we'll do tomorrow, we'll continue. Look, the problem with going through the details is that you know most of the details, because if you paid attention in Truma Tzitzava, you should know what happens in Vayakal Pekudei. Anyone who does Shtay Mikra with Rashi knows that last week was the most ridiculously easy week in the world. It was there was no Rashis on the entire Parsha, because Rashi just says, I explained this all already in Truma. If you do Unklis, by the way, the length is the same. But if you do Rashi, it's cut down to 1/7. Okay, shkoyach.